Rosa Parks helped set up a civil rights movement in the United States by refusing to give up a white man's seat on the Montgomery, Alabama bus in 1955. Her actions motivated the members of the local black community to mobilize, and the Montgomery bus boycott beginning on the day Parks was accused of breaking the ban on segregation. The boycott, initiated by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., lasted more than a year, during which Parks did not coincidentally quit his job. The Supreme Court held that the division of buses was illegal. Parks became a nationally renowned symbol of dignity and strength in the fight to end firm racial segregation during the next half-century. Born in Tuskegee, Alabama on 4th February 1913, Rosa Louise McCauley was born. At the age of 2, she moved to Pine Level, Alabama to live with Leona's parents. Together with her family, James and Leona McCauley, her brother Sylvester was born in 1950, and her parents separated shortly afterwards. The mother of Rosa was a professor, and education was appreciated by the family. Rosa traveled to the Alabama State Teachers College in Montgomery at the age of 11 and finally attended high school there. At 16, she left early in grade 11 because she had to look after her dying grandmother and her chronically ill mother soon thereafter. She married Raymonds Parks at the age of 19 in 1932, a 10-year-old self-educated man of her senior, who was a barber and a long-time member of the NAACP. He helped Rosa to obtain her high school degree. At the end of that year, she did. The seamstress Raymond and Rosa became respected members of the large African American community of Montgomery. However, there were daily frustrations with white people in the city governed by the Jim Crow laws. Blacks were only allowed to attend inferior schools, they were only able to drink from specified water wells, and borrow books only from black library, among other restrictions. While Raymond had previously deterred her fearing for her safety, Rosa also joined the Montgomery chapter of the NAACP in December 1943, becoming chapter secretary. She partnered closely with Edgar Daniel Nixon, chapter chairman. Nixon was a railway carrier regarded in the city as a champion for black voters and president of the Sleeping Car Porters Union local branch. On Thursday, 1st December 1955, 42-year-old Rosa Parks came home from a long day of work to the Montgomery Fair Department store by bus. Black citizens of Montgomery also resisted municipal buses because they found the scheme of the Negroes in black to be demeaning. However, 70% or more of the riders on a typical day were black, and on this day, Rosa Parks was one of them. Nevertheless, it was customary for bus drivers to have the right to ask a black individual to give up a white rider's seat. There was an inconsistency in Montgomery's book laws. One said that the distinction had to be enforced, but another generally overlooked and said that no one, white or black, could be asked to give up a seat even though there was no other bus seat available. At one point on the road, however, a white man had no seat because all the seats in the designated white section had been taken. So the driver instructed the riders to stand in the 4 seats in the first row of the colored section, in turn adding another row to the white portion. The other 3s obeyed. Parks didn't do that. People always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired, wrote Parks in her autobiography. But that isn't true. I was not tired physically. No. The only tired I was tired of giving in. Eventually, 2 police officers approached the stopped bus, assessed the situation and placed Parks in custody. While Parks used her one phone call to get in contact with her husband, the news of her arrest spread rapidly to E.D. Nixon, who was there when Parks was released on parole later that night. Nixon had been hoping for years to find a bold black person with undisputed fairness and dignity to become a plaintiff in a case that could confirm the legitimacy of segregation laws. Sitting at Parks' house, Nixon persuaded Parks, her husband, and her mother that Parks was the complainant. Another proposal arose. The blacks of Montgomery should boycott the buses on Parks' trial day, Monday, December 5. By midnight, 35,000 flyers had been mimeographed to be sent home with black school children, reminding their parents of the boycott. On December 5th, Parks was found guilty of violating the law of segregation, suspended sentence, and fined $10 plus $4 in court costs. Furthermore, black participation in the protest was much greater than even the community's optimists had expected. Nixon and some ministers agreed to take advantage of the momentum, creating the Montgomery Improvement Association (MIA) to handle the boycott, and elected Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. new to Montgomery, and just 26 years old as president of the MIA. As appeals and similar cases go through the courts all the way to US Supreme Court, the Montgomery bus boycott has engendered resentment and aggression in most of Montgomery's white community, and Nixon's and Dr. King's homes have been bombed. The violence did not, however, dissuade the boycotters or the members, and the Montgomery drama continued to draw the attention of the national and international press. On 13th November 1956, the Supreme Court ruled that the division of buses was unconstitutional. The strike ended on 20th December, the day after the final order of the court arrived in Montgomery. Parks, who had just lost her job, had been threatened all year, became recognized as the mother of the civil rights movement. Faced with persistent abuse and intimidation following the boycott, Parks, along with her husband and mother, eventually agreed to relocate to Detroit, where Parks' brother lived. Parks became an administrative assistant in the Detroit office of the Congressman John Conyers Jr. in 1965, a position she held until her retirement in 1988. Her husband, her brother, and her mother died of cancer between 1977 and 1979. In 1987, she co-founded the Rosa and Raymonds Parks Center for Self-Development to support the youth of Detroit. Throughout the years following her retirement, she traveled to lend her support to civil rights movements and organizations, and published an autobiography, Rosa Parks' My Life. Throughout 1999, Parks was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest distinction the United States bestows on a civilian. Other recipients included George Washington, Thomas Edison, Betty Ford, and Mother Teresa. When she died at the age of 92 on October 24, 2005, she became the first woman in the history of the country to lie in the state of the United States Capitol.